Hi everyone, this is OCD Live. I'm Ali Grayman. We're going to be answering some questions about OCD. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, please subscribe. If you have a question that you would like me to answer on the next show, please leave it below any of the videos and let's get started. So the first question is there a known relation between having OCD and being manic? An example of being manic for me is that, let's say I get an idea to do something that I like working with plants, and I go and buy exactly the plant I want, and then I can spend all of my energy working on the plant. Yesterday this happened again. I was working on potting up some plants almost to midnight. When I woke up in the morning, I felt stupid for doing this with such enthusiasm. But in the afternoon today, when I was walking my dog, I found the wild hedge that I wanted. When I got back from the walk, I took a shovel and some plastic gloves, drove to the place and dug up the hedge. When I got home, my religious OCD hit me that I stole it. I don't think I did. It was in the middle of some semi-abandoned construction site among 300 invasive plants. I already have more than 35 plants in this room. I have so much other stuff that I should get done. Thank you. You're awesome. Well, very much thank you. And see, with OCD, there's a certain type of personality that develops OCD in the first place. So, for example, somebody who doesn't care, somebody who is like whatever in life, they will never develop OCD because you need to be very focused on something. Your mind needs to have that almost like that ability to be able to focus on something so intensely, and that transfers into every area of people's lives. Not always, but a lot of the times it does. So there is, I wouldn't call it being manic, but being very excited about certain things and being fully immersed into something that you care about. Being OCD is the negative version of that, but if you funnel it into something that you care about, such as what you're talking about here, gardening, right, then it's good. In terms of your actual situation, it's, again, you know you have religious OCD. This spiked it. Use that spike as a way to push past it. So if you're still worrying about this obsession, what you need to do is say anything to do with this situation is OCD. I'm moving on. I'm not paying attention. I'm not analyzing this. And I'm just basically giving it no energy whatsoever. And you will see at first it's hard because you're not paying attention to it and your mind wants you to pay attention to it, but then it will let go. So the next question is, how do I move on if I don't feel right about my compulsions? I felt right at first, and after a while my mind says that it wasn't right, and then comes the anxiety. So Ali, I need your advice. Okay, so you cannot win by doing compulsions. And even if you do it perfectly, your mind will just twist it a little and say, but what about this? You didn't do that. Or, but this wasn't right. So there's no way you're going to do enough to satisfy your OCD. And even if by chance you satisfy this type of OCD, it will move on to another type of OCD. Because at the end of the day, the mind is attached to the anxiety, not to the specific thought. So if you're trying to undo the specific thought by doing a specific compulsion, and your mind is attached to anxiety in general, you're just going to go from thought to thought to thought. Your mind's going to go, okay, you satisfied this compulsion, what about that? Or this obsession, what about that? Satisfy this obsession, what about that? And over and over and over again to different things. And you can go your whole life doing that. And a lot of people have. And you can, even if you have gone your whole life up until now, you can stop this now. Because as long as you keep playing the game continues. If you stop playing the game will stop. Not instantly. You will have to sit with anxiety for a certain period of time while the mind recovers. But you will get there. But it's important for you to refuse to give it any more attention, because it's that attention. You're saying that something is important, and the more you say something is important, the more of these thoughts you're going to get, and there's no escaping it. And by doing a compulsion, you're saying this is important enough for me to do the compulsion. And your mind wants you to do the compulsion because it wants you to protect yourself. Because if in real life you were in real danger, your mind would want you to do something such as, it wouldn't be called a compulsion, it would be called a protective action to protect yourself, right? But with OCD, we call it a compulsion because it's done over and over and over again, because there's not enough that you can do to satisfy that, because it is an OCD problem. It's not a real life situation that just gets resolved and you move on. It's an obsession, right? So choosing not to play the game, choosing not to seek relief, because there's a big difference with OCD between seeking relief in the moment versus seeking recovery. They're not the same things. And if you did the compulsion and you feel better, you're actually making your overall condition worse, because your mind is again learning that repetition that this is very dangerous and this is very important, and it needs to send it in any way possible to you. So guys, like, I mean, I've been there. Believe me, I've been there. And I've helped so many people overcome this as well. That I know exactly what it's like. I know exactly how difficult it is for you right now to say, well, how am I going to do this? How am I going to feel uncomfortable? But you really have to go through the process and accept the fact that for now, until your brain reshifts itself, you're going to feel uncomfortable, because this is another thing. And again, I mentioned a lot of stuff over and over again because repetition, first of all, it helps to get it into the subconscious. Second of all, it's important for you to understand, if you're new to the channel, to understand where OCD is coming from. And for people who've already heard this, it's important for you to know it kind of on autopilot, that this is what it is, without even kind of thinking. That your mind doesn't understand what thoughts it's sending you. It's sending you the thoughts on autopilot. And your reaction it keeps those thoughts going. And the anxiety will feel uncomfortable if you don't keep those thoughts going, because your mind will want you to react, and it's going to do everything in its power to protect itself. So you're going to get anxiety, you're going to get fear, you might get, depending on your OCD, you might get feelings of guilt, of shame, of I'm not good enough, I'm a bad person, all of these things. Almost everybody who has OCD gets these thoughts. It just depends on the type of obsession you have, right? But because most of the OCD deals with harm and things of that nature, it kind of feeds into all those feelings as well. So don't be afraid of them. Your mind doesn't know what thought it's sending you. So that guilt, it's not real. It's real in terms of you suffering, but it's not real in terms of your mind is not even understanding what's the nature of the thought. It's just bouncing back the thought that you reacted to with guilt. It's like, basically, think of it this way. You're cooking a soup and you're adding ingredients, and then your mind adds more ingredients to the soup that it never tasted in the first place. It doesn't know what it is. It's kind of a weird example, but I just want you to really kind of understand this, that your mind has no idea what the thought that it's sending you. So refuse that reaction. It's like with everything that you have in the moment, think of your family, think of your friends, the life that you're missing, and put all of that in perspective versus this situation that's not real, that you've had obsessions about millions of times, and refuse. Just, if you can't refuse permanently, say, okay, I'm going to refuse to get my life back. I'm going to refuse for 2 to 3 hours. And then after that, add another hour and another hour, and just like basically just little by little start pulling yourself out of this condition, because every time you're doing compulsion, you're just feeding it more and more and more. So let's go on to the next question. Next question is, can pure O make you feel like you're lying to yourself when you self-reassure? Okay, so again, this is exactly what we just talked about. You're self-reassuring, and your mind says, well, that's not good enough. Well, maybe you're lying to yourself. Well, maybe what you're doing is wrong. Maybe it's wrong in this way. Maybe it's wrong in that way. Maybe you should do compulsion again, right? So you're going over it over and over and over again. And it's, again, not playing the game. So yes, it can make you feel like that. That's part of its tricks that it can do, among many others. And it's the only way you can get out of this and win is by not playing the game. So another question I have is, how do you become so knowledgeable about OCD? When I first started listening to your videos, I thought you were a psychologist. I don't know if you know the story, but basically I became knowledgeable about OCD by having OCD. And when I recovered, it's kind of a long story. I don't know if you guys care about hearing it again, but long story short, I was stuck in OCD. It was a while ago, quite a few years ago. So back then, there was even less information than there is now. There's not a lot now, but there was like nothing then. And it was really bad. It got to the point where I couldn't leave the house and couldn't really do much, and you guys know all how it feels and all of that. So it got there, and basically I tried everything. I've tried to find as much information as I could online about OCD because I was new to the whole thing. I never heard about OCD, never heard the term, nothing. And I tried to do vitamins, I tried to do medication, I tried to do therapy, I tried to obviously do crazy amounts of reassurance and compulsions, and none of it worked. And um, somehow I got onto the path of refusing, and that's the only thing that worked. And after I got through it and got over it, um, somehow I fell into helping others with it as well. And little by little, it led me to having the YouTube channel and to doing the recovery program and to all of this, right? So basically, I just have, because I've been talking to so many people at this point, I just know very well what OCD is all about, how to help people recover. I mean, this is what I do all day, every day. I work on the weekends as well. So pretty much every day I'm helping people recover. So it's just, at this point, it's just experience. I don't have any kind of degrees or anything close to medical field at all. So if you guys are interested, I'm in the computer field. So it's nothing to do with the mind or the medical field at all. But, here we are. And, I always say the best moment is when my client comes back to the doctor who didn't help them and tells them that, you know what, now I've recovered without your help because you couldn't help me. Because, honestly, I hate it when the doctors say to the client that, oh yeah, I can help you, and then the client goes to them over and over and over again, and there's no progress, and then they're talking about their childhood and da da da, and useless stuff. I mean, like, there is some validity to understanding where, OCD started and all of that. But, when I talk to a client, I only ask them about their childhood in the first session and briefly at that, because it's not important. We need to address where they are now and how to fix the situation now. What happened in the childhood doesn't really matter compared to now. Unless there was some huge trauma, right? And I've seen people, to elaborate on this, I've seen people from all walks of life, and some had terrible childhoods and some had the great childhoods, and they get OCD the same. So it's not about the childhood. It's about the person being stuck on a thought and getting them out of that obsession. So anyways, as usual, when I talk about doctors, I start to divert. It just, honestly, it makes my blood boil when people say, "Oh yeah, I'm an expert in this. I know this. I can help you." Because that person, like, I've been that person. That person is basically on their last leg, so to speak. Trying to crawl to help. And they're basically flat out lying to them. Like when people come to me and they say, "Can you help me with depression?" or "Can you help me with some other mental issue?" I say, "No, I can't, because I can't. I know about this. This is what I can for sure help you with. That, I can't help you. Sorry. I can't. I don't understand why they don't have the same courtesy, and they're basically lying to the person. Never mind about the paying and the money and all of that, but it's, it's the time. That person is suffering. They're never going to get that time back. You have to be responsible. If you're saying you're going to help somebody, then you should help them. And if you can't, then don't say that. I don't know. It drives me crazy when I hear that. Because it's the same, like, you guys don't understand. I have so many clients, like, this is commonplace. I rarely have a client say to me, "I have a great doctor." I do hear it, but it's much more rare than people say to me about their horrible doctor stories of how, they went to a doctor and they didn't help them and blah blah blah. It's sad. And I talk to people all around the world, um, from all kinds of places, right? And the situation is pretty bad everywhere. I would say United States has kind of more people who specialize in it. By more, I mean, you could count on one hand the more. Anyways, let's move on to the next question. That question is, how do you cope and deal with multiple intrusive thoughts? Is that common? Yes. multiple intrusive thoughts. It's because, again, your mind is attached to anxiety. It's not attached to the OCD thought. So it can jump from thought to thought to thought, and it can even jump from one theme to another. That's very common. So what you want to do is you want to refuse the reaction to every single theme you have. So for example, you have a theme that has to do with religion. Every time you're getting obsessed on any topic that has to do with religion, no matter what it is, if it's giving you anxiety, if you're feeling like you're getting overwhelmed and obsessed about it, it doesn't matter the content. Refusing outright and say it's religion, cleaning, harm, and something else, right? So these topics, whenever you're getting obsessed about it, disregarding right away, not giving it a single dose of energy. So next question is, with anxiety and OCD, I have become very antisocial and I stay home most of the time and sleep too much. I also suffer from depression. I'm finding it hard to make choices about anything, even the little things like, do I take my meds or not? Are they making me worse or better? How do you deal with this? Again, because I don't know much about depression and I don't know the correlation between depression and OCD, I would say that with the medication, it may be, I don't see it helping a lot in OCD, but I see, but it's only what I see with OCD. For depression, it could be very different, right? So I would say, in terms of taking your meds or not, and again, I'm not a doctor, but I would suggest taking them, because you don't want to have a crash. And, when you feel better in terms of OCD, I've gotten to the point where when I stopped, and I stopped in the worst way possible because I stopped super abruptly, but my clients kind of taper off slowly, when they feel the time is right for them. And you'll see it. You'll see that, well, why am I doing this? Why am I taking this? I haven't had a OCD thought in a week or in 2 weeks or in a month. Why am I taking this stuff? You know what I mean? So you'll get to that point yourself when you don't need it. Staying home, isolating yourself, all of this is very bad, and it's going to cause you to have more OCD. So you got to get yourself out there. Even if you feel like you're going to have the worst time, you don't want to see anybody, just go. Just go and do it, because the more you go and do it, the more powerful you will feel, the better you will feel about yourself after that you have gone and done it. And you're showing your mind that you're not in a dangerous situation, because you're behaving as normal. You know what I mean? You're not going out of your way to protect yourself, to do anything different. So it's a position of power. And when you're in a position of power, that means OCD is not in a position of power. So you're the one in control. And that shows the mind that you're not afraid, that there's no panic, that there's no danger or fear, and your OCD starts to get better. So it's very important that you overpower yourself, And nobody's telling you that you're not going to have anxiety. Nobody's telling you that you're going to feel good when you go out. You're going to get anxiety, you will feel bad, but you're making yourself better in the long run. You're fixing your condition. You know what I mean? And you actually won't feel as bad when you go out as you think you will feel when you're thinking about going out. But in terms of medication, like I said, I would stay on it, and again, I'm not a doctor to advise you anything, but I would stay on it until you yourself feel like you don't need it, And you could actually talk to your doctor when you have gotten to that point where you're so much better, even your doctor will say, like, well, if you haven't had a thought, why are you taking it, So the next question is, sorry for all the questions. I understand if you cannot answer them all in one day. No, I can. I try to anyways. I just have one more. I think some of my intrusive thoughts are also false memories. I get really scared and worried, and I think, why did my mind choose to be so worried about this? Is it true or is it not true? Maybe I really should be worried about this and panic. And I panic. Also, how long do people tend to be worried about thoughts? For me, it's been around 6 weeks. So, okay, false memories are very common. This is a very common type of OCD. I deal with it a lot, so I'm very knowledgeable on it as well. If you wanted to do the recovery program with me, in terms of trying to figure out if it's true or not, that's getting you deep into the OCD thought, So you want to make sure that you're not addressing it that way. It's a false memory. It feels like a false memory. I'm disregarding. I'm moving on. If you feel like it's a false memory, which is what you're telling me, then it's a false memory. Don't even go further with it. And I know right now you're thinking, does it feel like a false memory or does it not feel like a false memory? It is a false memory. That already tells you that. Stop analyzing, because the analyzing is what gets you deeper in. In terms of how long people worry about specific OCD thoughts, this is the problem with OCD. It doesn't get better on its own. You need to show your mind that this topic is no longer relevant for your mind to move on. So this can go on for years. You can have one thought and be stuck on it for the rest of your life if you don't do anything to fix it. And your mind, because it doesn't know that it's sending you a false thought, it takes any thought to be real, because it's not programmed to deal with OCD. Because it's like OCD is kind of like an anomaly, if you will, right? It's not the usual mode of operation for the mind, right? So the mind doesn't know how to deal with it. It's not set up for it. So it's just viewing every thought that you react to as being worthy of the reaction, And this ping pong of you reacting, you sending the thought, your mind sends it back to you, you send it back to the mind, your mind sends it back again. This can go on for the rest of your life. You have to stop that game, that ping pong game. You have to stop it for your mind to stop bouncing the ball back to you. So another comment I have is, and this is the reality of things, this is, the person says, my harm OCD is making my life unbearable. And that's the thing is, you need to refuse the reaction. As long as you keep the reaction going, you will feel really, really bad. So in order to feel better, you need to stop reacting to it as if this is important when it's really not. And you will start to feel better as you refuse. Not instantly, because your mind is so used to viewing this as a big deal. But it will stop. But in order for it to stop, you need to stop the reaction. So it's the more you react as if this is a real situation, the more intense your feelings become, the more you feel guilt, the more you feel shame, the more you feel alone. It's all of these things increase as you are feeling bad, as you're taking this seriously. So next question is, this is under my Recognizing OCD Thought video, and the person says, it's your second video on how to recognize OCD doubts. I still don't understand. The reason why you don't understand is because you are trying to analyze and you're trying to figure it out, and the more you try to figure it out, the more questions you get, because you're doing it as an obsession, okay? If you are watching this video already, this is an OCD thought. What you're experiencing is an OCD thought. You don't need to solve 100% that this is an OCD thought, because you will never get there. Your mind will always throw you some, well, what if about this detail? What about that detail? And you'll just go on forever, over and over and over again, So recognizing OCD thought. Is this an OCD thought? Does it feel like an OCD thought? When you brush your teeth this morning, do you think, maybe it's an OCD thought that I brushed my teeth? No, you don't think that way, because that's a real thing, right? Or like, say, if you have false memory OCD, did I brush my teeth or not, and if you don't I remember, it's because it wasn't important enough, So if you're doubting any thought as, is this OCD or not, that means that this is an OCD thought. Simple as that. If you're watching that video, it means you're doubting, that means it is an OCD thought, and you need to do the work. Right now, you're trying to get reassurance. So you're trying to reassure yourself that you're safe and that this is an OCD thought, and then you can move on. But what you're actually doing is you're coming in the subconscious, you're coming from a position of fear, showing your mind that you're very afraid of this, and you just really need to solve it because you're so scared. And guess what your mind's going to do? You may solve this specific thought, but what's it going to do? It's going to send you another thought to protect you from this something that you fear so greatly, So again, not playing the game. So guys, if you get anything from this show, what I want you to get is, whenever you have a thought that has to do with your theme, and you know what your theme is, if it's a driving OCD, is it religious OCD, is it harm OCD, whatever that theme is, and whatever that specific thought is, refusing to pay attention to anything that has to do with this thought. If you can't flat out refuse, at least delay. So for the next few hours, I'm not going to pay attention to it. Then I'll come back to it. And then after those few hours pass, okay, I'm going to give it another few hours, So you're constantly delaying, because when you're delaying, you're showing your mind that you have the power. Not your OCD has the power, but you have the power. And that puts you at an advantage situation. That puts you in control, and that shows your mind that this thought is really not dangerous. And once that fear goes down, you will start to see it logically, like everybody else sees it, that this is really nothing. When you have that logic clouded by all the fear, you can't really see it. Once you start to refuse the fear, you will start to see it increasingly more and more logically, and it gets easier as you progress. But in the beginning, you just have to be very vigilant, and no matter what it has, no matter what kind of way it throws it, basically how it cooks it under what sauce, it's still the same thing. It's still your OCD theme at its core, whether it's harm or whatever. It doesn't matter. And don't get scared by the content. The content doesn't matter. You can have, the worst thoughts in the world. It means nothing. It says nothing about who you are. It actually says that you're a very nice, sensitive person, because if you weren't that nice, you wouldn't care. So don't get so focused on the content. View it all as OCD from a distance, from a third person perspective. Don't view it as in, oh my God, and now I'm getting the thought, but why am I getting this OCD thought? View it in that way, and also try to reduce stress. Try to drink less coffee. Don't do avoidance. Don't do reassurance. Try to live your life as normal as possible, even if you feel like you're faking it, because that feeling of you living a fake life will go away after a while. It happens to everybody as they try to get back to normalcy. That it will go away, but you need to show your mind that you're no longer afraid, for it to stop bouncing that ball back at you, that ball of fear. You need to show it that there's no ball, right? There's no spoon, or this is what they say, right? So it's the same thing. Show your mind that you are not afraid. And then you'll still get that reassurance in the end. You'll be able to see that all of this was for nothing. You'll get that reassurance, but you can't get it through checking and through analyzing, because that's the action that comes out of fear. When you recover and you get reassurance, that's not out of fear. That's just logic. You'll see it like everybody else sees it. So anyways, we're come to the end of the show. I hope this helps. If you guys have questions, please ask below any of the videos. If I haven't gotten to a few questions, I will get to them on the next show. Again, guys, I'm sorry for posting on the Sunday when I should be posting on Wednesday. I'm just a little bit behind. I'm hoping that next week we will go back to our regular schedule. So I'll have a ask questions video come out on Tuesday, and then from there we can have the next video, next show coming on Wednesday. So thank you guys again for listening. If you have any questions, please visit youhaveocd.com. There's a private recovery program there with me. There's ebooks, there's articles, lots of information to help you recover. There's also lots of information on this channel as well. So please check that out, and I'll see you in the next show.